Hey everyone, it's Maria here. Great to be here with you today in this Facebook Live. If you are wanting to have your questions answered here, but you can't make it to these live sessions, just simply email us at desk@mariasumilov.com with your questions so that we can include them in these live sessions. It's, as I said, it's fantastic to be here with you today. So let's jump into it. Number one question. Can you please share tips on communication in relationships, specifically on how to broach an important or difficult conversation with a spouse when the topic is a trigger for either one or more important to one than the other? Great question. Okay. So the very first thing we need to remember when it comes to communicating is that if you don't have positive rapport with whoever you're communicating with, so with your spouse or whoever, it usually is not going to end well. So you can usually kind of, determine or precede the outcome of your conversation if you don't have positive rapport going into the conversation. It is unlikely that it's going to be resolved. So in order to have conversations, especially challenging conversations, you first have to make sure that you have positive rapport with your partner, and then talk about it in a way that doesn't accuse the other person, but that just simply explains what your experience of the situation has been. So you're focusing on, hey, I'm having this, when these things happen, when we're having challenges and these things, something happens in our family life, what happens for me as a result of that is this. So you're not saying you're doing this, you're always doing this, whatever. Never say always, you always do this, or you never do this, or it's always like this, because that's already putting the person on the back foot. So just say, here is the situation that makes me feel this way. So you describe the situation as opposed to saying you're doing this and that's what's hurting me. So that's the very first thing, which is really, really important to understand. I believe that the question asker is an INTJ. Okay, so as an INTJ woman, you also need to understand that you are the rarest type and gender combination in the world, which means that how you operate is not how most other women operate. So getting advice from other women on how to deal with this may not actually be helpful for you because you're so different. And also, I believe your husband is an ESFP, so a sensory type as well as an extrovert. So this can be very challenging to try and communicate the differences between the two of you, because you are so different in your wiring that you are very much likely to get miscommunications or misunderstandings about things. What I mean by this is you predominantly introspect on things, which means that you're not necessarily able to just jump into a conversation and have the response ready. You need time to process things, whereas he doesn't. He is an extroverted type for whom it's easier to express these things than it is to introspect. Okay, so that's one thing that's different about the two of you. The second thing that's different about you is that you're predominantly working on intuition, which means that you naturally are able to, or a lot more able to, detect what other people might be going through. He, as a sensory person, is not able to do that. So unless he sees it or hears it or smells or tastes or touches it, it doesn't appear real to him. So you might have some like you're not meeting, you might have some like disintegration there, where you're talking about something that could happen and he's talking about something that is or is not happening. So if you, for example, if you're sharing a fear of yours with him, he may not see that as a valid thing because it's not actually happening. The third thing that you have that you are different in, because you're actually exactly the opposite types. The third thing that's different about the two of you is that you're a thinker. You like to make sure that things are in order, that makes sense for you, that things are, that your, lives are as effective as possible. You probably don't like waste very much, and you can also feel like having these conversations or having this kind of struggle is a waste for both of you. So you might feel some resentment towards having to deal with this problem, especially if it's a topic that's triggering one of you or is more important to one of you than the other. And whereas he will, just from his type, he will be a lot more likely to want to just feel things out. This is how I'm feeling, this is what's going on from a feeling perspective, and you just want to get things done. So it's very that's a thing that's very, very different about the two of you. And finally, you're a judger, as in you like to be making decisions rather than leaving things open-ended. He likes to leave things open-ended rather than make decisions. So as much as it threatens you to not know what's going to happen, it threatens him to be too rigid about things. So I'm not sure exactly the topic that you're discussing here, because it's not mentioned, but so if you want to just write further questions down in the comment section, that would be completely fine. I'd love to be able to help you in a more specific way. But so if I knew the topic, I could actually give you specifics on what might be going on for him and what might trigger one of you more than the other. The things that trigger people is not feeling free. And the bottom line is that you get a sense of freedom from knowing what's going to happen, and he gets a sense of freedom from having his options open. So I hope that helps with that question. Okay, another INTJ question. How do I transition from people pleasing into being more authentic? How can I put down boundaries and deal with people more gracefully? Well, the way you deal with people more gracefully is don't wait until you're so frustrated, until you have no other choice than to blurt something out that's probably going to be hurtful for another person, right? So know when you're contributing to the situation in a way that may trigger you or other people. But how do you transition from being a people pleaser into being more authentic? My question to you, kind of a challenge and a question to you simultaneously, is this. Is your people pleasing tendency originating from culture? Is it originating from, say, faith or religion? Is it originating from your familial experience when you were growing up? Or is it just something that it could be a combination of any one of those three? Because that will tell us how you can start moving into more authenticity. Because we want to do this in a way that is actually not too jarring for everyone around you. So we want to make sure that you're doing it, you're transitioning more and more into your authentic self, but in a way that doesn't leave a trail of destruction behind, so to speak. So we want to make sure that we're honoring every person who's involved in this situation. So for me, I would like to know more about this before I can really answer it properly. But a short answer is you start transitioning from people pleasing into being more authentic by really beginning to respect yourself on a different level. What that looks like is that you don't just see the things that are wrong with you, that you also see the things that are right with you, the things that are great about you. So I would like to challenge you to write down, take 5 or 10 minutes every morning and write down all the things that you appreciate about yourself. And you're not allowed to put your pen down until you've done 10 minutes or 5 minutes. So set a timer and start writing. And when you start writing those things, if you can't think of things that you really appreciate about yourself or respect about yourself, then think about things that you like about yourself. If you can't think of anything that you like about yourself, then transition into your best friend's body and start channeling what they would say. What would your best friend say? So you're going to start respecting yourself on a different level, and once you start respecting yourself, you start prioritizing yourself, and the people pleasing kind of just falls away because you're now prioritizing yourself as a part of everyone. So it's this question asker is Zahida, and I love that you've asked these questions. That's fantastic. I love your work. It's such a privilege to be doing this work with you. Zahida, I would ask you though, have you ever considered that you could be an INFJ? So I would challenge you to go and read the INFJ description and see how that resonates with you, and let us know. Simply because a lot of INFJs test as INTJs. I know you've done some tests, so if you're absolutely sure that you're INTJ, that's totally fine, but I just want to cover that base because it might actually open up an awful lot of things that haven't yet opened up in your personal development journey. So I would challenge you to go and do that. All right, so I hope that was helpful, everyone. Thank you for joining live. It's always great to be here with you today. And if you want your question in for next week, just simply check out or send us your questions at desk@mariasumlov.com. All right, I'll see you next week.